Big welcome from my side. It's great to see so many of you here, even after lunch. I know it's hard to stay awake during that time of the day, but I'll do my best to make it possible for you. So today I will, as the moderator already pointed out, talk a little bit about data-centric security, how it helps with PCI compliance, but I'll go one step further. I'll also examine a little bit, like, what are the key initiatives, strategic initiatives that a lot of financial services organizations worldwide are running today, and what does data-centric security and also PCI contribute to those? So let's get started. Okay, so data-centric security and PCI DSS. I think the easiest way is to start with, well, what is actually data-centric security? For some of you here, this might be old news. For some of you, this might be new, and I'm actually surprised every time that even at events like this, not everyone really understands what it is and how it works. So data-centric security is an approach where you embed the protection right with the data. And with protection, I mean the discovery of data, the classification of data, and then actually the protection by either using tokenization or, for example, forward preserving encryption. So that, if you wish, the security travels with the data no matter where it goes. This is significantly different to traditional security practices or security controls that we've seen in the past 20 years. Perimeter security, where you're trying to build or fortify your network more and more and more, still is useless if that perimeter is breached. With data-centric security, that's not the case. Even if the perimeter gets breached and data is extracted, it's basically tokens or no-value data elements that an attacker can extract. The way it works is very simple. We start by basically doing an automated and continuous data discovery process, which will, according to the definitions that you've put in place, find the sensitive data all across your environment. Once you find it, it gets classified by criticality, liability level, et cetera, and then you also, of course, apply a protection method to it. Once that protection method is applied to it, and you now use that protected data in your systems, given that you're using, for example, tokenization, these systems are usually considered out of scope, which of course helps a lot with reducing audit cost and also shortens the audit process. So how exactly does it help with PCI DSS? So first of all, it protects the cardholder data right at the source. So that means that upon entering of the clear text values in your organization, it gets replaced by a token, which means that from that point on, not only the system where it was generated, but also subsequent downstream systems will only see the tokens. Because, in this case, we're using format preserving protection methods, it also means that downstream, your applications, your processes, your analytics, whatever you're trying to do with the data, doesn't break per se, as, for example, with classic encryption. Now, it also means that you're avoiding a sprawl of unsecured data throughout the network, which by all means you really want to avoid, because once you had that sprawl, sort of getting stuff together, it becomes really complicated. Now, as I already mentioned, if a system or if your systems run on tokens, they're usually considered out of scope. And because our data discovery runs as a continuous process, I think it nicely aligns with some of the newer requirements also from PCI DSS, which basically says compliance security is not a once in a time requirement, but is something that should be continuously monitored, addressed, and improved. Exactly that is what's possible with data-centric security. It also helps to enable least privilege and access control. And last but not least, because all of that happens pretty centrally, it means that compliance reporting, evidence for audit readiness, all of that is basically available at the press of a button. So, now that we've basically set the stage for what's data-centric security, how does it work, what's the good old benefits it brings for PCI DSS, let's actually look at three areas where I think a lot more value is going to be generated over the next few years. The first one, you could say, it's an oldie but goldie. data analytics. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the collection, processing, analysis of large volumes of data, and that also includes the payments data in near real time or real time. With that, you want to generate insights that optimize operations, that help you to personalize cardholder offers, for example, or which helps with strategic decision making further down the road. So through vaultless tokenization or formal preserving encryption, you can keep the data usable for all these analytics. And because it's only tokens and encrypted values that flow into your analytical stack, the analytic stack basically also drops out of PCI compliance. We've seen and we've known that for years now, that those companies who actually leverage the data for advanced analytics see big benefits. Be it profitability increases, significant ones, be it faster onboarding of customers, or be it being better at fraud detection. All of that can basically be tied back to advanced analytics. A more interesting one, and I think a more emerging one, is data sharing and data monetization. So one of the things that I learned in the last year or so is that companies like the big credit card networks by now generate about 15 to 20% of their revenues, not through transaction processing, but by selling data, by monetizing the data they collect. So what's this about? This is about taking all the payments data, the transaction data that is being collected, anonymizing it, aggregating it up, and either selling the data directly to third parties, making it available to other parts of your organization, or also generating insights from these data sets which are being sold off. Now that, for example, helps with additional products that can be taken to market. It helps third parties to understand spending or buying behavior, and it can also help with things like market segmentation and lead scoring. Now again, because we're able to de-risk or de-identify the data that is being prepared and processed for monetization and sharing initiatives, that brings down the time of preparing the data and getting it ready for sales down significantly. We're talking about 40 to 60% here. Of course, that also means that time to insight gets significantly reduced. And this is not a small market. So research indicates that by 2030, we're talking about a data monetization and data sharing market of about $1.5 billion US, which per definition makes it very interesting in terms of a market and for financial services organizations who collect and generate the data every day, and who certainly know very well that there is a lot of money to be had. Okay, the last one. So the third one here, it talks about generative AI, but I actually want to open it up a little more and broaden it up. If we're talking about AI today, also in this context here, I think it's really two types of AI we're talking about. One is generative AIs interacting with large language models, asking a question, getting a smart answer back, hopefully. The other type of AI is what I would say advanced pattern recognition. So AI, ML being really wonderful at understanding and figuring out what kind of patterns we're seeing either for fraud, but also what kind of patterns, repeatable patterns are emerging in terms of buying and spending. For both, it is, I think, essential for the coming years that AI doesn't become the next super disaster for data privacy, data security, and also for PCI. Because for all of these models, let's start with the AI models for advanced pattern recognition. They need a ton of data to be trained on. So with Data-Centric Security, you can make sure that whatever data is being used to feed the AI ML model, that's not going to put you at risk in terms of compliance. And it's still going to be usable for training. The second part, large language models and generative AI, it's actually even a little more interesting. What our organizations are doing today, they're mostly using public models, right? And then they're feeding organizational context into these public models. Now, what you obviously want to avoid is that the organizational context that you're feeding into the model includes any sensitive data, which could then leak out via query and response where someone interacts with the model. The query and response itself is also something that needs to be looked at, because via the user query and as well as the response, there might be sensitive data elements in here which are also subject to PCI compliance, and where de-risking, de-identifying those before either the model is trained on it or before the response is given to the end user, that those are being taken care of. So in all of these three examples that I gave, analytics, data monetization, and also the AI initiatives that organizations are trying to drive today, you can really look at it that way. If you address PCI DSS today in your good old, let's say, payment switch, your authorization environment, with a concept like data-centric security that can also be extended to other parts of your organization, you're setting yourself up for a path where all these new projects that are emerging in your organization don't require you to sort of try to solve the compliance and security puzzle, from scratch each time. But you're basically, with data-centric security, creating a basis which is going to unblock all of these initiatives that the line of business wants to do, but where the compliance and security guys usually, have one or the other concern about it. All right? So, with that, having said that, let's summarize it. No matter if you're in the context of data analytics, if you're in the context of data monetization, if you're in the context of AI, the key benefits through data-centric security are obviously protecting cardholder data at scale. That way, accelerating, all the necessary analytics, all the necessary data work for creating new services, for creating new revenue streams, and also for enhancing any kind of, here on the slides it says AI-driven fraud detection. I would again broaden it up, AI-driven anything. Yes, fraud detection is one of the use cases where it's going to be used, but there are many, many more. So think of data-centric security at the end of the day as the thing that is going to unblock the hurdles from compliance and security that you will have in the way of meeting the requirements from the line of business. Okay, so I'd like to also, of course, say at least a few words about, who is that guy that just talked to you and who is he working for? So the company that I work for is called Comforte AG. We're a German-based data security company. We've been around for, I think, 26 years to be exact now, and I think we have a little bit of a track record to show for that as well. As you can see, a lot of the financial services organizations worldwide trust us today. 15 of the 25 largest banks, some of the largest retailers in the world, and also the 3 largest credit card networks in the world basically use our data security platform to make sure that A, they comply with PCI DSS, but even going further than that, that it's not just about compliance, but that they have a data security posture that also holds up to real-life threats. Because we all know we're not just doing compliance for compliance sake, but we're doing it because there are threats out there for the data that you should safeguard. So another fact that probably a lot of people don't know is, as we are pretty strong in terms of our customer base with payment service providers, payment switches, credit card networks, banks and merchants, we've actually did the math recently, and I think it's safe to say that more than half of all credit card payment transactions that are being done today are being protected by Comforte. So we are indeed one of the hidden champions that you might not have heard about, but that you should definitely have a chat with us to see about where we can help you, be it good old PCI compliance in your payments environment, or going beyond that with the innovative initiatives that you're trying to do as an organization. So I would like to invite you to have a chat with us. Me and my colleagues are going to be about 10 meters that way at booth 14. Please stop by, have a chat with us so that we can see if there is a way for us to collaborate and work together. Thank you very much.